gonna keep the microphone at this side because my wife is a little shorter than I am. I'm really happy everyone's here. We are now going to move into the second presentation. This is going to consist of my lovely wife Kim Cooper and her illustrator for her novel Paul Rogers. They're going to split this talk up. On the screen is Paul Rogers' cover for the novel you've written, Kim. Does everyone have a flyer? Okay, great. Okay, I didn't do this before Tom's talk. Interesting things coming up. Got a crime lab coming up July 13th, Sunday, July 13th. That crime lab is going to be about forensic biomechanics, so basically how the human body responds to blunt trauma and trauma from a sharp object. And basically, one of the things talked about is, oh, you told me I killed my wife, but she's my wife, so when she had a nosebleed last week, I staunched the blood with a handkerchief and it got on my shirt. And the goal of the talk is to show how they're trying to be able to identify microRNA to say, well, actually the blood came from her lung, so we don't think that was a nosebleed. We think you punctured her lung with a knife, and that's how she died. We've got a talk at El Encanto on Sunday, June 22. Our good friend Brian Kaiser, the tile guy, is going to talk about the D&M tile at El Encanto. If you don't know what El Encanto is, it's an incredible 1928 Spanish colonial revival showcase home built by developer Peter Schneider and for Midwick Estates, which of course crashed and was disbanded, declared bankruptcy because of the Depression. And El Encanto survives. It's a gorgeous specimen of Los Angeles Spanish colonial revival with really great oranges from D&M. We're the best people to make the oranges, and the Castilian... The glazes, thank you, the glazes. The Castilian seal is prominent in the iconography, and the oranges from D&M perfectly match the orange and the Castilian seal. So there we go. So that's my look ahead. Okay, Kim, you wrote a book. This is the cover. Paul did it. It's great. We were showing footage during the break of the offset printing of your novel, what our printer calls the guts, a term which I don't like at all, but I thought I'd share with you because you do. So you're going to talk about the writing of this a little bit, and maybe the printing of this a little bit, and then Paul's going to start with this cover, and Paul, you're going to get into just the process in general of your work as an illustrator and an artist. Something like that. Okay, I don't want to put you in the box, but we're going to start with that image and move on with you. Kim, you're not ready. Okay, so Kim, take it away.
Thank you everyone for coming, and especially Paul for that. You hear me? Good. I have to start by talking about the grade 11 because this whole thing begins right down here on Broadway. Well, kind of on Main Street, down on Broadway in 1922. There is a young woman, she's about 15 years old, her name is Ruth. She's grown up with her con artist mother, May, and she's gone to work for a living because that's what you do in 1920s LA. You go to work as a taxi dancer. She's very pretty, she's pretty curvy, she's looking for a man, ideally one with money. She's not finding one in the taxi dance halls on Main Street, but she finds some small-time help, which a girl can use while she looks for the big con. She is walking up Broadway, perhaps right out in front of this cafeteria, which this was a cafeteria at the time, and she hears a voice calling her, and it's a voice from the big con in the sky. It is the angel, Michael. And Michael says, I want you to be my earthly emissary and share the secrets of the ages, and your mom's going to help. Now, the two of them were living up on Bunker Hill in one of those fantastic old rooming houses, and they have a little curvy tower room, and it's very angelic up there. They have the view all the way out to the ocean, and the angel dictates to them what becomes the tenets of the grade 11 cult. It is a book that is to be known as the Sixth Seal, and it is a revelation of the location of all mineral wealth in the earth. It's synchronized to the location of the stars. It's very simple, very practical. If you're complete nincompoop and you're sort of seduced by how gorgeous Ruth is, it makes perfect sense and you'll give them all your money. So they start to produce these small publications.
Kim, these are the two of them behind you.
Oh, you look up there. I was going to call for an image, but there you go. Yeah, these are the two of them. This is Mama Bear. May, and she always seemed to dress for the winter. And that's Ruth. She's a little bit older, and she's quite starry-eyed. And if you go to the next image, you'll see what she looked like sort of around the time she was working down here as a taxi dancer. That's a very important image. But we can go back, because you want to see the two for sure. So, they find some people who believe in them. They gather a little cult around them, and one of their true believers is this guy named Clifford Dabney. And Dabney loves them because his uncle is a big, rich oil man, and he loves the idea of paying ahead of time to get access to this revelation, so he can get richer than his uncle and lord it over his uncle, as his uncle has always lorded it over him. And he's got some income from some oil stakes and some real estate. So over the course of 5 years, he gives them about $50,000. And they produce these small pamphlets, and there's always just a little hint of the revelation, but there's never actually any, map to the hidden treasure. They're always building up to that, because angels work slowly. They think in the grand scheme of things. He runs out of money, and that's when things get interesting. Now, his money has been used by this point to support about 100 true believers. They're all living up in the Santa Susana Pass, in a place they call the Hill or Harmony Hamlet. They've also spent a great deal of money on producing what they call the Lord's Furniture Set, which is this enormous set of really ugly furniture with gilded lion's heads on it. So that's $40,000 over the course of 5 years. Dabney goes to his uncle and explains that he's completely without funds, and his uncle says, okay, I'm going to double your money, kid, but you got to go to the DA and you got to file charges against these people. So that's what ends up happening, and the whole scandal unfolds in 1929. When the scandal unfolds, it turns out that these people have been up to all kinds of no good, because the way that May and Ruth have kept their believers in check is, they all have what's called a concord. They have to do some sort of busy work. My favorite of the lot, and you'll see him in a while, is weird ward known as King Blackburn. Ward stood on the corner of Wilshire and Westwood with a coffee can, and he would count cars or raindrops, depending on what there were on that particular day. All of the people in the cult were kept extremely busy. It kept them from thinking too much. And Mother May would do things like say, go out and buy all the crazy quilts you can buy. We're going to get rid of insanity in America. And then she'd take the crazy quilts and she'd pile them up in the living room of whatever rented house they weren't paying rent on at the time. And everyone would hop up and down until they were exhausted, beating the craziness out of the quilts.
Right.
A lot of word games, what can I say? So, it's all fun and games until they start investigating. And what they find out is that a lot of people have died. Everyone who dies just sort of disappears. There's one poor woman, they put her in an oven to cure her because she was sick. Word games. She wasn't doing too well. So everybody was told, let's all get in our cars and go to the beach and watch the sunrise. And when they got back, she was gone. Someone had disposed of her, and they were told she had walked away. Frances Turner, they never found her. She's just gone. It's really heavy stuff. So that's up at Harmony Hamlet. And Dabney, the guy who gave the $40,000+, was obsessed with the idea of becoming the centerpiece of the cult. So his idea was that he would drive the resurrection engine, and that would be out here on Broadway. The resurrection engine was sort of a tractor/calliope murder machine, and he would drive it up and down Broadway, and people would just sort of rush out in front of him to be struck down. And then he would put them in the cooling towers, which were out on the edge of town. Those were high-rise buildings that were filled with cold air, and he would keep them there until he was prepared to bring them back, and then he'd kill them again. And this is why he invested all of his money back in getting all the oil and the gems and so forth. So an interesting group of people. So I was talking about them on an early crime bus tour for us, which were called Wild Wild West Side. And what we would do is we would go to the site of the house where a couple of the cult members lived, and where they preserved the body. I think we can see a body at this point. Of this young woman, Willa Rhodes. Willa was a little bit younger than Ruth. I think they were sort of breeding her as the new priestess. As Ruth got a little bit long in the tooth, they were going to bring this one up. She was only a few years younger, but it helps to have a seductress in the wings of your occult. She was adopted at the age of 2. She had foster parents. I think she was picked for her beauty. And she got a terrible toothache in 1924, and it ended up killing her on New Year's Eve, 1925. She was kept. She was preserved. Can we see the next image? It's a horrible one. Oh, not so bad. Buried posthumously. That's what they did to her. They tried to preserve her along Egyptian lines. There were a lot of salts and herbs involved. There were also the bodies of 7 murdered dogs that were the 7 hinges of her heart. It's terrible. Can we go back to the pretty girl? Thank you. So it was an interesting scandal, and we would go on this tour to the site where her body was retained for about 5 years, where it was ultimately found by the police department, and it was a real cost to that. They arrested both of the women, the cult leaders, and ultimately the mother, May, went on trial, and she was convicted for fraud and for taking funds under false pretenses. None of the deaths were ever tied to her. No one would talk. Everyone was still living up in Harmony Hamlet and scared to death of her. No one found any of the bodies except for this one. And the coroner looked at her for weeks and couldn't find any cause of death. And he ultimately, certainly no sign of violence, he ultimately had to believe their story that she just had a toothache and they ignored it. And they saw that sort of thing with Christian Science all the time. They couldn't really charge them for it. So, the unlawful concealment of a death, they decided to just let it go. Everybody was very upset, and they gave her a Christian burial. She was at Woodlawn in Santa Monica if you want to go visit her.
We will.
Yeah. So, May was convicted. They sent her to prison. She appealed, and she won her appeal in 1931. She won because it's not illegal to believe that you talk to angels, to tell people about it, for other people to believe you, for them to give you all their money, for them to buy you property. None of that's illegal, or we wouldn't have religion. So we talked about it on the West Side tour. It was a really fun and interesting narrative. I love doing it. I love taking people to the grave. That was part of the tour too. But then we decided we didn't really like doing tours on the West Side. It was sort of a schlep. So when we
And there are a lot of reasons we don't give that.
I'm just going to say it was sort of a schlep.
Okay. That's a polite thing to say.
Thank you. So we mothballed the tour, and we sort of folded the narrative into Richard's Raymond Chandler tour, because Dabney, the man who sued ultimately, was the nephew of Raymond Chandler's boss, Joseph Dabney. And so the whole thing unfolded under the young Raymond Chandler, not yet a mystery novelist, nose, at the corner of 7th and Olive at the Dabney Oil Syndicate. He never writes about it, but he writes about all kinds of crazy rich people, and he must have been aware of it. It sort of goes without saying. So, Richard, are you going to... Yes, you're doing something, I can say.
Oh.
Let's keep going. No, that's cool. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
That's right. Yeah. There's the autopsy.
Okay, so then this shows it. Chief Steckle on Mass, self-published 1931 pamphlet naming names. It is an incredible document of crooked Los Angeles. And this comes to me as a gift from Lynn Carroll, an old zine friend. She buys it in Northern California and thinks maybe I'll be interested. It costs her $5. Probably cost her more to mail it to me. I open this thing up, and it is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. This is a disgraced cop. He's been bounced off the beat. He's been trying to talk about reform from within. They knocked him out of, first he was an investigator for the police commission, reporting to the mayor. They didn't like what he had to say, so they sent him to the corner of 7th and Broadway out in front of, Clifton's wasn't there yet, but where Clifton's is now. And he would just obsequiously help people across the street. It was far beneath his standard, but he didn't care, because everyone he helped across the street, he would say, did you know that our mayor and police chief are incredibly crooked? Are you interested in that? Would you like me to tell you more about it? I'm happy to cross you across the street 4 or 5 times and tell you everything I know. So they sent him to Van Nuys. There were nothing but chickens, and he was helping children across the street. Did you know that the city of Los Angeles is very crooked? You should go and tell your parents. They sent a couple of undercover investigators out. He did the same thing to them. They fired him. He sued. And during the course of his fight to get his job back, which he ultimately did, he produced this pamphlet, which is transcripts of all of the documents that he produced for the mayor, that the mayor just said, who cares? Grow up. We're all grown-ups here. You really should shut up. Addresses of whorehouses in Chinatown, transcripts of complaints from Chinese businessmen saying they're being shaken down by the candidate for chief of police, Chief Steckle unmasked. Just wonderful, juicy stuff. And I'm reading it, and I start reading stuff aloud to Richard, and he says, God, this is like a prototype Philip Marlowe. And that's the first time we get the idea that Marlowe, the great white knight detective in Chandler's books, might actually be an amalgam of real Angelinos. Richard starts looking for characters like this. He finds others. Aldo Corsini.
Okay, Richard does not find Aldo Corsini. Mike Frantantoni finds Aldo Corsini.
Richard finds Mike Frantantoni.
Okay,
Mike Frantantoni
Richard
finds
does not
Aldo Corsini.
Richard does not do this. Credit where credit is due.
Thank you. Okay, so we just start looking. We start
Richard does
talking
not
to
have
people.
access to these information.
Thank you. Aldo Corsini, George Contreras, Thomas H. James, just fragmentary characteristics from all of these guys fit into, none of them are private detectives, but the sort of idealism and the experience, the work experience that precedes what Marlowe ends up doing. It's similar to these guys' careers, and it's fun to look at it. So we start talking about that on the Chandler bus. And I talk about, of course, the Grade 11 cult, because I'm going to use any excuse to talk about the Grade 11 cult. Thank you. Oh, sure. Isn't he a darling? I mean, that is Philip Marlowe, right? Look at that face. Can we see another face? And that's Chandler around the same time, working 2 blocks away at the Dabney Oil Syndicate, working in quotes because he basically just, does whatever he needs to do in the morning, gets drunk at the LA Athletic Club and wanders around downtown LA. Must have encountered Thomas H. James if he didn't encounter him personally, which would be hard to do. Hard not to encounter him. He must have read about him in the 1929 Los Angeles Times when his behavior resulted in a very long column celebrating his rather oddball approach to police work. So, we put these guys together. It was fun. I wanted to do something with it. I wanted to write about the Grade 11, but enough material is missing, and I'm a complete perfectionist. I couldn't write a true crime book about them that I would be satisfied with. So I decided it had to be a novel. And since we've been talking Chandler, talking Marlowe, and getting this stuff all together in our brains anyway, it just seemed like it made sense to sync these stories up and write about Chandler being in the office, having the young Dabney come in with this problem, and having his boss, Dabney Sr., who always gave the big problems to Chandler in the office, just say, I could figure out what this idiot kid has done this time. And that becomes the one-week narrative of The Kept Girl. Can you see Clifford Dabney? Have you ever seen such an idiot in your life? Okay, so here's the thing. When you start writing fiction, when you've never written fiction, I've written 4 books before, some of them anthologies. Never written fiction. I write anthology type rock and roll writing at night. Later the better. Cannot write fiction at night. Had to write it early in the morning. Had to get up early. Had to force myself to write 1,000 words a day. Had to force myself to stop editing and revising because I wasn't getting any more of a word count. I was perfecting, but you can do that for the rest of your life and still have 20,000 words. I spent a lot of time in the sauna of the Los Angeles Athletic Club brainstorming. I would close my eyes, picture the scenes, get really, really, really hot and start to hallucinate. I could hear them, I could smell the old Los Angeles. It doesn't smell great, but I like it a lot. And then I would try to, get out of there before passing out so I could write some of this stuff down. Oh, he's awful here. Does anyone know what this building is? You know. Women's Christian Temperance Union headquarters on Kingsley. It's still there. You can join if anyone here is interested in temperance. Wonderful group. Tom James was the foster son of a very prominent member of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, Allie Wheeler. So we went to the WCTU to look at their archive that one of their members has accumulated. Just wonderful stuff. And found some photographs of them, and it was really interesting. If you go on.
If I go on, yes.
Circled in pink, that's Allie Wheeler. That's Tom James's foster mother. We found the photo that day. Unfortunately, an elemental followed me home. Thought everything was fine. Thought I could just go home and write a novel. Nothing weird would happen. Oh no! Half a glass of wine that night. The elemental did not like me drinking. I had my first and last migraine of my life the night after returning from the WCTU, but it meant that I stayed sober for 6 months out of terror of having this happen again, and it helped me get really focused on the book. Thanks, Allie. And I guess she forgot about me because I'm tipped a little now. Go on. Another very important person, Dorothy. Dorothy Fisher, this is a 1940s image shot at Paramount. That's Chandler standing with his secretary. We knew Dorothy late in her life, and she is a wonderful, she's gone now. She was a wonderful woman. She really gave us insights into what Chandler's relationship with women was like, his working relationship, just his incredible charm, which we've heard from other sources. And she became the model for Muriel, the secretary, because I could not tell a story of Chandler as a young oil executive trying to solve a mystery without putting all of the danger and hard work on his secretary. That's really the only thing that made sense. And once once I figured that out, the book came together. That's Ford Blackburn. He was married to Mother May. He's the one who stood on the corner counting cars or raindrops. And he was born on my birthday, and I sort of feel like he's my spirit animal, so I just wanted to share everything. He used to ride around Harmony Hamlet dressed in Chinese robes, and he grew his fingernails very long. You can't see his horrible hands in this photograph. You can see his Chinese mustache, though. And he would ride around on a horse and sort of scare everybody, and then people would be dancing naked. Harmony Hamlet was a really wild place. Simi Valley, 1928. Okay, so I wrote a book. We could do one of two things. I could send it off to New York and let New York figure out whatever they were going to do.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I did let my agent look at it. She didn't think she could sell it. But she also knew from my last book that I'm really, really difficult to get film rights from, so maybe that's why she thought she couldn't sell it. I don't know. I chose to believe that as opposed to it not being a good book and to just move forward. Go on. I published a rock and roll magazine for a number of years called Scream. That's the Dan Clowes cover that I bought for $1. That's a story I'll tell one day. So I just talked to Richard, and we realized we could do it, and we wanted to do it ourselves because we like to do stuff. And the whole notion of figuring out how to, in this digital age, do a physical book is kind of fun and exciting. And boy, it's been a lot of work. And it has been fun and exciting, and I'm glad we're doing it. And we didn't have to worry about things like who's going to choose the cover or the title. Because I saw this and I thought, wow, whoever did that, that's who I want to do my book cover. I hope if I ask him, he might say yes, and he did. Thank you. Someone discovered that and shared it with the Off Bunker Hill mailing list that we have for discussing old LA. And just this wonderful image of Angel's Flight, sort of then and now, really stuck with me. So I just want to walk you through some images of making a book. So we decided we were going to fund the launch of Esotouric Ink with a subscription. And I see some subscribers here. Thank you. Anyone want to raise your hand? And I got a yes. You're good people. I appreciate it. It's a very old model of publishing where a group of people get behind a book before it even goes to press, and their support, their financial support, and even beyond that, their emotional support means a lot to the people who are getting the book together. And for the subscribers, we needed something special, so I walked around downtown LA with my sister Chita, and we scoped out all of the Art Deco details in like an 8-block radius, and I found something that I thought could make a book cover. It's this centerpiece, the rondelle of the door at the William Fox Building, kitty corner to Pershing Square at 6th and Hill Street. Go on, Richard. And then Richard's a little taller than me, so if we're photographing the details, keep going. There's Richard's
That's the corner.
Yeah, well, we had to get those corners for the corner of the book, right? So yeah, get in the shot, and then I mocked it up. And then, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so it went from me to Phil Goldwhite, who turned it into this. And that's debossed, not embossed.
Where's Peter? There's Peter.
This is Peter Campion from the Foil Works, and he works independently at the Towerley Press, which is where we ended up doing the book, so that was a wonderful benefit to be able to have this incredible craftsman from Hungary who could make these beautiful wraps on site.
That's all you're going to say about Peter, the mad Hungarian?
Peter is a mad Hungarian. He probably wouldn't want me to say a whole lot more about him. He hasn't seen a movie since The French Connection. He's incredibly cranky.
He's very gifted.
He's very, very talented. And he works on, this 19th century equipment, and he does stuff that you really want to see done in person. So go hire him to do something. And when we walked into Towerley, this is who we met. Gary married, 3rd generation owner?
Yeah.
3rd generation. And if you'll keep going, Richard, we also saw this on the wall. They started down on Wall Street, what is Printers Row. And this is probably the last family-owned, independent print shop of old LA. They're in commerce now, but of course they're in commerce now. I mean, nobody prints in Skid Row. These are the founders. It's Tower and Lee. They apparently get questioned a lot. People think that they're an Asian company. Lee. They're not.
You want to talk about the substone table?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's this beautiful table here. Hang on, I'm going to take a slurp.
the table.
Yeah, this fantastic heavy table. They had to like tear walls down. Sorry, to get this into their new building, but it was worth keeping. It's from the old place. Okay, so let's walk through the process of making a book. That's Erwin, and he's taking one of the plates out at the moment, and every time you print a plate, you have to replace it and do the next one, and the plates are physically suffering. It's a signature. It's like 16 sheets. Some of them are upside down, some of them are right side up, and the ink is attaching to it, and the pages come out at the far end, and then they clean it all.
attaches to the rubber mat.
Thank you, Richard.
It's offset printing.
Okay. Anyway, the point is, then they clean the thing, and sometimes some of the text comes off, and you have to make a new one. So it's very delicate. It's really kind of fascinating. Keep going. And then as the pages come out, they have to be properly oriented because the whole thing's going to go into a folding machine. And yes, there is scum involved. Scum is every single page that comes out, well, maybe every 20 or every 100 or so gets checked, and some of them aren't good enough and they get tossed into the bucket. And I like that there's a scum bucket. And hey, it's the real deal, man. Lots and lots of gooey ink.
That's your cover.
Right, at this point, no, the book is not a color book. That'll be the next one.
No, it won't.
No?
No.
Keep going. You got your reds, you got your yellows, you got some other colors too, but that's all you got today. And then, they come out, and somehow they get dried on the way. I think there's some sort of massive flow in here inside, but it's all enclosed in this computerized here. And then there's a color check, and somehow Erwin knows what he's looking for.
Yes, he does. I don't.
No. But he was happy, and if he's happy, we're happy. And that is a complete run. That's 3,000 bucks. Can you believe it?
So those are signature sheets, Kim. Those are
Right,
back and recto verso.
Exactly. This is before they've been folded. Go to the next. And then they run through the folding machine and they come out. And now don't worry, if any of you are as obsessed with factory porn as I am, this is all going to go up on YouTube. And I've got lots of great footage of the folding and the printing. And it's fun stuff.
The folding machine makes a really good noise.
Yeah.
As it does 4 folds.
Truly hypnotic.
Really great
noise. It's very cool to watch it. I was so privileged to get a chance, and I'm sure OSHA wouldn't be happy with us running around in there, but there we were, and they were nice about it. Thank you, Richard, for making this happen, because I could not. I just remember when I would do issues of Scram, they were so funky. Like, I wouldn't even turn in a PDF. I would turn in hard copy that they would shoot. Because I thought, well, I know it's right. It was easier, but that was, 2000. A long time ago.
Yeah. LaTeX is your friend, Kim. LaTeX is your friend.
So, the Kept Girl. And I cannot talk about the Kept Girl without referencing the Kept Girl. Willa, I'm sorry, baby. But thanks for letting me tell your story, and thanks for listening to mine.
Good job. Kim, why don't you tell them something funny while Paul and I are setting up?
Okay.
Tell them.
Have any questions?
Yeah.
Any questions or yes?
How much does it cost to print per book in that way? You're self-publishing?
Well, we're not self-publishing. I mean, we really started a press, and I'm not doing them one at a time. We printed the whole run. So, I mean, it's standard. You're looking at about $3 a book.
$3, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's other expenses.
Well, that's for a limited run. What you're asking is, at what point does it become really cheap to print a book? Like, when does your cost per book drop to $1 a book? And you have to look at 15 to 20,000. If you can print 15 or 20,000 copies of a book, you can find a printer that will give you a quote for basically $1.50 a book. If it's not color, if it's just black. But yeah, that's a lot of books.
Yeah.
Like, that's a small warehouse of books.
Oh, yes, it is.
So it's a lot of books.
Why is there a shot of that?
Kim, did you keep a journal of this whole process from, I know it's sort of germinated and then it
point you sort of said, okay, I'm going to do this, and we'll keep a log of your time and journal of the process?
No, I didn't journal the process, but I think that once I started writing using Scrivener, which by the way, anyone doing writing in any format, screenplays, novels, nonfiction, whatever, use Scrivener. It's great software. I think Scrivener automatically keeps backup, so probably all of my notes would be dated. And if I wanted to go back and deconstruct them, I could. Thank you.
Why don't you give a list of bookstores where people might have one?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Yes, the Cat Girl is available, of course, from us at Lava or Esotouric events, but you can also find it at Vroman's, at Skylight, at the Larry Edmonds Bookshop, at the Museum of Death, at Book Carnival down in Orange, and just over here at Caravan Books next to the Water Room.
So the copy I have, every copy out there came off that website.
Every copy out there came off that press, and if you go to the back of the book, you'll find the names of all the subscribers, and those names will be in every copy, including digital copies.
And do you foresee taking other titles from yourself or from others?
Yes, there will be other Esotouric Ink books. Richard has a couple things in the works, and everyone seems to want a sequel. They want to know what happens to Muriel, so once I figure out how to get this book into bookstores and libraries, any librarians out there I can use some help, I guess we'll start writing again.
And there may be other Raymond Chandler related books.
Oh yeah, there's some Chandleriana that may be coming down the pipe, so stay tuned.
Okay, let's go.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. I'll answer questions about typesetting the book after we're done off the clock. I use LaTeX, by the way. I had to get a degree in computer science to figure out how to typeset the book under LaTeX. It's pretty hard. Paul, let's go. You're great.
Thank you. So thank you. Kim's a great writer. If anyone's read the book, you know that. But she's also a very convincing letter writer to get involved in her project. So it was great. I've been an illustrator since I graduated from Art Center in Pasadena in 1980. It seems like just a few years to me, but it's been a while, right? So when I first got out of school, I printed these posters at Colby Poster Printing downtown. No longer with us. They just closed up, but just to sort of generate some interest. So go ahead and get that. So this is the cover we're seeing. This is the original stuff. With Kim, it was what she did. She wrote me a very, very convincing, very sweet note, and then asked if I would write works on a book. And usually that's a bad email to return. Somebody's written their first book and they want a cover, and it's like it's not gonna go well. So, but you know, something about the Raymond Chandler thing, and I knew about Kim's and Richard's tours, so I thought. So it's like I wrote back. I said, "Why don't you send me the book? If I think I could do something with it, I will." Right? And after about 40 pages, I was in. I was like, "Okay, I'm doing this." So I asked him, "Is there anything that has to be on the cover?" Because when you get an author involved, they got ideas already, and you don't want to screw it up for them. And she was like, she didn't really have a list of anything. I don't remember anything. It was like whatever you think is right. So I thought, if I send your drawings, pencil sketches, here, go to the next slide. This is what I was thinking. When it was like, McKnight Coffer was an American illustrator and designer, early part of the 20th century, who moved to England, did most of his work in England. And I thought, well, I always love those covers. This is my chance to do a cover that sort of has that vibe to it. So this was in my head at the beginning of the project. So then, and there's another. This is the main one in my head. I was like, this is a fantastic cover, right? I was like, I don't know if this book is any good or not, but that cover is fantastic. And I don't own this book. This is a photo out of another book about book covers. Okay. So the first thing I did after talking to Kim, and she was like, go ahead and put something together, and we'll see. And I thought, if I send her a pencil sketch, I don't know Kim, she might then get into like, can you change this? Can you change that? Can you not really understanding the pencil sketch. Maybe it would be hard for an author to deal with. So I thought, I'm just going to do the whole damn thing and lay it on her finished. So then she'll open her email, boom. Hopefully she'll just be like,
She cried. She cried.
Well, you know, she wrote me back quickly. But anyway, so this is a pencil sketch I did first. Like all my work is done on computer now, because if you're an illustrator, that's the only way you can make a living. So, so this pencil sketch is the first thing I did, work out on just on paper what I'm thinking. Go ahead. Then it's like you take that sketch, you put it into your computer, and I work in Illustrator, which is sort of a modern version of airbrushing, because you have to sort of work out each section, pick a color, and apply it. It's more design-oriented than painting-oriented. But that's how I used to work as an illustrator with airbrush, so it makes sense to me working this digital thing. So then you do that, and then the next, and then it goes. Then I made the genius move of rotating the image a little bit to give some more vitality to it, right? But so the only thing I sent to Kim, and the only thing she asked for was we changed the headline on the newspaper because I was giving too much away. I used one of the headlines from the book, but then it was like let's use this other one so we don't, sort of spill the beans too soon. Well, then the other stuff, the glasses and the pipe, that's of course for Chandler. And I did some research, make sure I got the right car that was described in the book, and also I wanted to be sure City Hall was in the design because it's an instant LA thing, right? And also it was newly finished in 1928-29, so it worked out. So anyways, that was that. And then okay, so that it's a beautiful cover, and I'm very proud to be part of it. Anyway, I was born in 1957 in St. Vincent's, right? I've been in Los Angeles for a long time. This is my town, right? So my mom's hospital bill was $50. Right? Or at least the doctor charged her $50 for me and my brothers. Each one of us had the $50 deal. Go ahead. Okay, but LA I know is a confusing place to people who move here and haven't grown up here. If you grow up here, you just kind of know your way around. I'm terrible at giving directions because I'll say, yeah, you kind of just go down that street until you see the bowling alley and then kind of veer over. But I never know the names of the streets to give people. My wife has moved here from Baltimore, and she's been here 20 years now, and she still has to call me on the phone. I don't know where I am, right? So I made this map that would help her understand where she is in Los Angeles. So go ahead. Geography in our mind, most people come to town, they either land at LAX or Burbank. So that's where you are in LA, right? Go to the next one.
Oh my God.
See, I live in Pasadena, which is essentially New England. Right, next. Santa Monica is still Santa Monica, right? But I get people who come visit me in Pasadena, and they're like, can we go to Santa Monica for breakfast? I'm like, yeah, no. If you're going to Santa Monica, you're not coming back to Pasadena that day. So go ahead. Okay, downtown LA, kind of New York City, Go. We got Hollywood in Chicago. Go on. Beverly Hills, kind of Denver. Next, Culver City, pretty much Texas, Oklahoma. Venice, kind of San Diego, Mexico. Malibu, makes sense, right? You got Portland, Seattle. Then one more. You got Manhattan Beach. You got Watts in East LA, which is pretty much the deep south, right? And I think there's one more. The San Fernando Valley, it's sort of Canada. You know it's there, but there's no reason to go. And Orange County is like Mexico, right? There's some nice beaches, but really no reason to go down there.
Do you sell this map?
I don't know. Okay. We can go on. Okay. So anyway, like I said, I grew up in Glendale, right? My parents still live in the same house that I grew up in. This is not that house.
That's Mildred Pierce's house.
This is Mildred Pierce's house.
1200 block North Jackson.
It's beautiful, right? I wish that was my parents' house. But I remember, so I graduated in 1980. The only way to make a living as an illustrator, you had to call people on the phone, tell them you were an illustrator, and you wanted to bring your portfolio down and show them. So I had this list of art directors, ad agencies, magazines, all this, people who I thought maybe would hire me for projects. So I spent a lot of time driving around town, meeting people, but I remember when freeways looked like this, right? By 10 o'clock it was open, and it was pretty much open till 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You could really, you know, the whole thing like 20 minutes to get anywhere, it was true, you could get anywhere. Not so true anymore. But if you can remember this, I think this should be up. Right? I think the carpool lane, if you were born here prior to 1960, you should have a carpool lane. Right? Okay. All right. So we all probably have these, you know, these photos of LA that we wish we could walk into. Right? This is the one for me. This is the thing. Right? The hay. It was right off of Wilshire Boulevard. Look at 1952 Jerry Mulligan, Chet Baker playing at the hay, right? There used to be a house, right? It was probably terrible inside there, crammed, little, you know. It's fantastic, right? This is the kind of thing about LA that kills me, because the next picture shows us this walk now. Oh, it's like painful, isn't it? Yeah. The Evanston's still there, but now it's a parking lot. There's a tree now. Okay. Okay, so anyway, this is John Whitcomb. When I saw this picture, I was like, that's it. I'm going to be an illustrator. This looks like a good. So I'll just show you some projects that I've done that kind of recently, and also have an LA sort of connection. This was from a book, an LA earthquake book, which is a handbook that came out about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was there were different sections. There were sort of like history of earthquakes. There was also sort of like which people should be doing to get prepared. And then there was also a literary section, which was writing about LA and just sort of a feeling of the region. So my job was to create like 6 or 7 drawings that would sort of fit this literary section. So some of it was just like this, which was this is an old historic photo about the movie The Palm Trees. The other thing I love, all the palm trees here are planted, right? It's not like we didn't have palm trees growing originally. And so anyway, and the illustrations for this whole thing, I had this old book that I scanned, and I put the illustrations on these old books, so the image is printed with old books as sort of the framework. So this is the piece that Kim saw, this drawing of Angel's Flight, and it's a quote on the right by John Flint. Okay. Then it's just other stuff, Tut Cafe, which was on Washington Boulevard in Culver City, and that's an overhead view of May Company. Yeah.
That parking lot just got landmarked. Yeah.
The May Company parking lot?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's a new museum of film is going there too.
Yeah, but they landmarked the parking lot.
That's good. This is a drawing of one of my heroes, Simon Rodia, builder of Watts Towers. If you've never been down there, like I lived in LA for a long time before I went down there. I saw pictures and I was sort of like, yeah, Watts Towers, I get it. Going there in person is fantastic. If no one's been here, someone who hasn't been there, I totally encourage it. I pick up friends now at the airport. First stop is Watts Towers. You want to see something? Let's go see that. This is just a little joke of Paul Sidon subsiding away. This is right off the freeway, right? These are little strips of Los Angeles that I love. These terrible architectural blocks that are kind of crappy, kind of combined. Right? And they insisted on this book, but you got to draw something from the Northridge earthquake. So that's just a building that collapsed on cars, right? Yeah. Okay, so the other thing, besides that kind of sketchbook thing, I had this sort of vintage airbrush thing, right? And last year, 2013, this book came out by Ben Irwin about, it was sort of a surprising history of how Hollywood was helping, well, they were working with Hitler in, before the war, working with the Nazi government to sort of make sure the movies were okayed by them. Like the German export market was very, very important to Hollywood before World War II. And and that was kind of the gateway to the rest of Europe. And if they got movies into Germany, then the movies went on to other places. And so they would send these movies or even scripts to the Nazi government or Nazi officials to look things over. So Hollywood Reporter called me and they said, we're going to do a book excerpt from this history, and we want to put Hitler on the cover. And I'm like, very doubtful. I think, really. We want you to do this scary Hitler thing. So so I sent them sketches, and as soon as they saw Hitler and Hollywood Reporter, they were like, no. So we had to think of what other ways can we combine Hollywood and Nazis. So this is like, it's kind of the Warner Brothers Tower, but it's also not exactly. The Warner Brothers Tower is one we all know because we can see it from the freeway, but every studio has a water tower, so we use that to see it. I did a series of paintings for a show, for a gallery in Pasadena that's no longer there. They just asked me to do some paintings about Los Angeles, and I can't paint except with tape and a lot of touch-up, right? So I just made a few paintings, sort of, if you know Stuart Davis, Stuart Davis never visited Los Angeles, so I sort of thought of this Stuart Davis kind of approach. So it's like, you can just click through those quickly. It's like 4 of them. This is La Cienega. It used to be Ferris Gallery, right?
I'm gonna let people off for another 5 seconds.
Yeah.
What happened to these? What happened to these?
They all sold.
Oh, good.
Yeah, crazy. It was like, really? We sold those, huh? that one did not sell. That was Casa de Cadillac. And then this one's downtown, right nearby. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
La Cita.
Yeah.
19th century building.
19th century
It's
building.
a 19th century building.
I was interested in the signage more than that. Okay. So occasionally the LA Times will call me and we got an article about something, will you go do some sketches of these things? And one of the first ones they asked me to do was a series of independent bookstores. They were asking writers to tell us about their favorite independent bookstores, and I drove around and did drawings of each of them. So this is, of course, the Great Book Soup on Sunset. SO1 down in Menlo Park, also a great bookstore. The legendary Skylight, our favorite, right?
Yeah.
And Romans. When I'm in Pasadena now, so I'm in Romans all the time. Okay. And then another one. This is right across the street. Right.
Yeah.
This was I joined a conservancy walking tour one Sunday and did drawings, and they ran those drawings in the paper. I was on this conservancy tour with a guy who was Hispanic descent, who lived here in Los Angeles a long time, and he said that stairwell on the left, that was the entrance for any dark-skinned Angelino going to the movies. You had to go in and go up the balcony. It was kind of an LA version of Jim Crow, right? When he was a kid, he had to go in that theater through the balcony at the top.
Palace Theater has a segregation colony down there.
Yeah, I didn't. It was the first I heard of it when he told me about that.
And the sightlines are awful. You were like way up
Crazy.
there.
Right? That's crazy. Okay. The Orpheum box office. And inside. So these are things, I just take photos of these things, and then go home and do the drawings. Make it look like I just did them on the spot. But I'm not a big sit on the curb, do a drawing.
But that skylight, you would have had to be lying in the gutter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is that other one. That first one just a minute ago was that was right around the corner from my house in Pasadena. It's transformed for the Rose Parade. That's right where the Rose Parade starts, and these bleachers go up. And so I did a bunch of drawings one year, and I held on to them until the next year. Then I sent them to the Times. Hey, you want to run these drawings? They're like, oh, perfect, right? And then they sent me down to Union Station one time, just to do a Union Station sort of what's going on in Union Station, and made some drawings. So this is the entrance. We actually have taxi cabs. That was all. Go back. That's every taxi cab in Los Angeles. Right? I think that's all we have. We have 3, right? Okay, so the next one. This is inside the information. It's a beautiful building, right? We just love it, right? But then this next one. I can never go in without thinking of William Holden getting shot. Right? It's a kind of a crappy movie, but it's William Holden, so I watch it every time it's on. Right? I always walk by that little spot. This is it, where Holden got shot. Okay, so this is. I've been doing this series of things for the MTA for a long time now. They first called me in about 6 or 7 years ago, and they were working on a bunch of new projects, and they needed sort of illustrations for things that were not yet built, or glamorized versions of things that were built. And so anyway, so there's a bunch of them. You can just click through these. They're just they're various. Like this is down by the airport connector, and so. Watts Tower, which doesn't really run by, but you can see the train. You can see the train. And then Subway, we actually have, you know, the Subway here. So these are kind of poster-oriented things. And this has been around a lot of billboards.
Oh, that's you.
They've been using that out there. Yeah. So anyways, I've been going down there on
Well, hides all the time.
Yeah, I did a whole. Here, go to the next one. You'll see there's like there's more. There's a whole. It's been going on for a long time. So even though I've been doing these things since I grew up here, I just want to know I've never been on any transportation. I have a car, and I don't, you know. I even come down here for a meeting from Pasadena. The Gold Line is right down here. I drive, and they always say to me, "Did you check the Gold Line?" Well, yeah, it was fantastic. It's like, no, I paid $10 and park downstairs and walk.
Ken Pratt will validate for you.
It's not even valid. It's like, you know, it's just not, to me, it's not right. I gotta
It's
leave
gone.
the house and go.
It's gone.
This place gone now?
They took the
arches
arches
are
down.
gone. The arches are gone about
This is
3
one of
years
my
ago.
favorite
I know.
taco stand
Yeah.
reuse, right? It's like
Yeah.
old McDonald's turned into.
Yeah, 3 years ago they tore the arches down.
That's about how long this drawing is. I'm glad I got a photo and
Good
did it
for
right.
you.
Yeah, legendary. Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes I just get ideas and I'm driving around. I'm going to take some pictures of taco stands and make some drawings. So there's a few LA taco.
That's Washington and Maine.
Washington and Maine. Yeah.
Central. This is South
That one's
Central.
on Central.
That's a 50.
South Central.
I think it's Central.
There's one on Central Avenue.
Central
Maine and
Avenue,
Central.
yeah.
It's Maine and Central.
Yeah.
No, it's Maine and Central.
Yeah.
No, Maine and Central. No.
They don't
This
need
one's Pasadena. Super burrito. Yeah.
Is that the one that puts the French fries in the burrito?
I don't eat it this much.
Oh, you don't.
It's not for a photo. I think the buildings are cool. You know. But then people will tell me, "Oh, that's fantastic place." About it, you know, I'm shy about it. This King Taco, great King Taco. Seems to be as a truck, right? It's a truck. It's not, yeah. And I love this one too. This little blue painted like shack.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love this one too. Like Pico and La Brea, right? Lucy too. Nice paint job, right? It's great letters. Hey, this is my favorite theater in Los Angeles now, New Beverly Cinema, right? When I was growing up, right? It's fantastic. When I was growing up, there was like 10 or 12 good revival theaters and movies. You know, you kept the schedules, and you wanted to go see The Big Sleep or something on a screen, you could do it. Now it's much more difficult, right? So it's much. Everybody has it on the computer, but I like to go into the movies. But anyways, this one, you know, the story was about to be closed because of the real estate thing, and Tarantino saved it, right? So I went down there one night I heard about the Tarantino thing, and like, I used to go, because I used to live in Park La Brea, and that was my theater. I used to go all the time, you know. So I thought, how nice. So one night I was go down there. There's a David Carradine festival. So I went down to watch a couple David Carradine films, and Tarantino shows up. He shows up and says a few nice words about Carradine, and then sits down and watches some movies with us and hangs out with everybody. It's fantastic. It's great.
He does most of the program.
Yeah, he helps with. He's friends with the family and the whole thing. So, but it's great. You know, it's really nice. Okay, this is a big event for my life in LA, right? Around 10 years ago, I think, I had a friend who was working over at Dodger Stadium, who was head of merchandising, and they were gonna put advertising on the outfield wall for the first time in Dodger Stadium history, right? Sad, but it's what we're gonna do. People get upset about Dodger Stadium, don't they? That's what I love about it. But anyway, so they were going to put some ads, and they thought they could soften the blow by putting some tributes to past Dodgers Hall of Famers. So me and my friend worked these two things out. Go to the next one. This is so for a whole season we had Dodger Hall of Fame billboards on the, and then like the next shot over here was like a Toyota billboard or something, right? Both weren't quite as cool. And then eventually, like they just gave that up, right? They stopped putting things. They just put ads out there now, so it's not the same. But anyway, while my friend was there, go ahead. We did a few projects that were fantastic. I grew up as a Dodger fan, of course, because I lived here. And so one year they asked every Dodger to pick a Dodger from the past that they admired. And they made these sleeve patches and I got to design them all. Go to the next. I
got those.
You
it's
got
right
one?
there. It's like, it was a great season. Eric Karros had a patch on his sleeve, and it was every player had come on have a patch on their sleeve. It was great. And I thought, there it is. And the other thing we did is the crappy Dodger magazine, right? The old days, like I had these great scorecards from Wrigley Field. They were just folded piece of cardboard. You could keep score inside, right? They had a beautiful cover by Otis Shepard and an ad on the back, and that was it. And they were 25 cents. And so my friend Dan Simon, the designer, we said, let's do these things now. And so we printed some. I designed some. He designed some. And like nobody bought them. those things did not sell at all. I designed a couple, he designed a couple, they went nowhere.
Gordon will buy them.
Yeah. I play adult amateur baseball on a Dodger team.
Yeah.
I got your patch on my shoulder.
They're hard to find now. Yeah, so hang on to them. Okay, so this is a book project I did recently, and I had this idea of watching movies. That if I did some little drawings from the movie, would people who know these movies recognize the movie from the little drawing? I make a little puzzle out of it, right? So go to the next one. So the book looks like this. There's like 6 drawings per movie. They're in order, and there's no movie stars, right? So I thought maybe we could run through a few tonight and see where we are. So this is the first one. I knew this smart audience would know, right? So these are some couple LA movies.
Yeah.
This was the one that started me going, right? Watching the movie, you know, when Jack puts the watches on both sides of the tires so he knows when the car pulled away, right? I thought, I love that little scene. I'm gonna do a drawing of that. Then I thought, I could make a series. This might, you know. So anyway, so it turned out it's one of those things, sitting on the sofa on Sundays and do 100 of them and then put them in a book. So anyway, so those are all the Chinatown ones.
Okay, is the next slide a new film?
No, keep going. We should go.
Yeah.
I think we'll have 6. So this was, you know, once you know, if you know the movie, they're obvious, right? If you don't know, like people are like, you know what you should have done for Titanic? You should have drawn this ship sinking. It's not really a puzzle book, it isn't. You know? Yeah, so that's the last one in Chinatown. So here's the next one.
This is new. Okay. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know.
What a smart crowd, right?
Double dip.
Double dip.
Yeah.
Where is that?
That's Raleigh Studios is built on top of it.
They absorbed it.
Raleigh Studios absorbed Jerry's Market.
Where did it face? What street was it on?
On Melrose.
On
Melrose at.
Van Ness.
Yeah.
Yeah, over by Paris.
They actually, the vice president I talked to said the market just became a soundstage. They
Oh,
took
really?
the frame
Yeah.
of the market and just reinforced it, and it's a soundstage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Little
Yes.
moments, right? Little moments you remember when you're watching these movies. And you're like, oh, I love that when he puts a little card in the.
Oh, yeah.
And I try not to give any real giveaway drawings, but for people who know, it's there, like, you know, right? Okay, this next one may be a little. The last one's Double Indemnity. Yeah. Anyone know if this is like, so starting, this is the first one.
This is a new film. Yeah.
Huh? No, maybe. I don't know. DOA made this might be in there.
Keep going.
Okay. It's a $20 bill wrapped around the finger. Oh, I'm stumping some people. I feel good today.
Oh, the killing.
Yeah.
No.
Not the killing. Why?
This is apartment over on like Harper or something.
The grifters?
Grifters. Grifters. Nice. Yeah. A great LA movie. A very underrated, great LA movie. Stephen Ferris. Yeah. And it's a little, he notices the end membership didn't have the damage.
Right. Can we buy this one?
Yeah, so anyway, this book's available.
Okay.
It's, if I was a promoter, I would have books here to sell now, but I'm obviously lousy at it. But it's on Amazon, it's fine, it's definitely my one. And it makes a nice gift.
It certainly does.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Anyway, thanks.
Okay, good. I think, does anyone have any questions for Kim or Paul? We have a couple minutes. Questions? Kim and Paul, come stand up. He will ask you questions. Come on. Kim, come on. At least Kim, you come on. Let me ask you a question. All right, so does anyone have any questions for either of the two of them? We'll just do this quickly.
Ask this man a question, or you're not leaving.
Okay. In the back, gentleman in the purple shirt.
This is in a general fashion. How much of the Chandleriana in your book is actually biographical, and how much is
Oh, in the Temperance.
investigate his life a lot, other than Dabney Oil or something?
Yeah, actually, I've gotten really deep into early Chandler as much as it's possible because he hid a lot of those early aspects of his life. And as much as is possible, the book is accurate, including aspects of the troubled marriage that he was suffering with Sissy at the time, which has really been glossed over in later years. But our friend Lauren Latker discovered that about 6 months after the things that happened in my book, he and Sissy actually filed for separation from one another, and they almost separated permanently. It was only her illness that brought him back from the Pacific Northwest. So it's really about him as a young, troubled, alcoholic, unhappily married businessman trying to find his way in Los Angeles. Yeah, we've done our best to be accurate. And when I say we, it's because a lot of it comes out of Richard's tours.
I do know. Red shirt. Oh, sorry.
Especially for Paul, are you the official Dodger illustrator?
No, you know, my friend who had the art directing job over there made a horrible decision to move his family to Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh.
Because he was concerned about his kids growing up in the big city. And he put his family ahead of my ability to have access to good tickets.
I recognize the drawings, like as an educator, you can get promotional materials from Dodgers and promote it in front of conversational or whatever. It looked like your work.
Some of the stuff I've done, they're still using. You know, there's probably someone over there ripping me off. It's all right. It's great. I mean, you know, it's fine.
How about that Union Station? Is that on the cover of a book? That you know, it looked a lot like that.
Oh, no, that was just a drawing for the LA Times. Yeah.
Mom, you had a question.
Have you ever done any book covers for psychology books?
Send him an email, Mom.
I can confidently say no. Never have.
Because I'm writing a book on gifted children.
Okay, Mom, you can talk to you later. Yes.
Paul, did you do a series of On the Road by Jack Kerouac?
Oh yeah, I'm working on that now. I'm doing one drawing for every page. On the road. I got about 200 drawings done. I got about 109 to go.
I'm on your mailing. Good stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I have a publisher in London that wants to do it, so when I get it finished, we're going to put it together.
Excellent.
Joe. Okay, Paul, how much has technology changed the way you work from graduating from the Art Center in 1980 when there were no computers to now, and when you work? What time of day are you?
Well, it changed everything. That's the big thing. It's like, you know, like it's gone from like making a paint on board, wrapping it up and getting it to FedEx by 5:45 so it could be in New York or wherever it's going the next day. The physical, just actually making something has changed totally. The promotion of it, like I said, you had to kind of carry your portfolio around and show it to people. You had to have agents in other towns trying to do the same thing for you. And the internet has changed all of that. The access, you know, there's less magazines now, but there's probably more access for illustrators. There's, you know, I can do a job for the op-ed page in New York. They can call me in the morning, I can do the drawing, and it could be in the paper the next day. I couldn't do that before with FedEx and all that sort of thing. So it's changed tremendously. You know, in terms of I work every day. I'm on the faculty at Art Center now, so I have classes in the afternoon. So normally I work in the mornings and I work at nights after my courses. But I'm lucky. People call, God bless them, and I still have assignments. So try to work every day.
I have a question for you. So when you're doing all this public work, is there a little hidden signature we should be looking for to know if it's yours?
No, because they take signatures off of it. It's hard to see. I mean, that MTA stuff, you can pretty much guarantee that all that MTA stuff that's in that style, I did. Although some of it I won't admit to. Sometimes it's just like it's a hard thing. We did an overhead view of a freeway with 6 lanes. No one's going to be very excited about that. The image.
Some people.
Yeah. So, but it's findable. My website is paulrogerstudio.com, and there's links there to my Twitter and all that other stuff. So if you're interested, you want to keep track of stuff. I have a blog. I'm on this blog with a bunch of other illustrators around the country called Drawger, D-R-A-W-G-E-R. It's a group of us who sort of collective blog showing our work.
Kim, was that corrupt police chief ever indicted or held responsible?
Yeah, Chief Steckel. Now they made him police chief. But he was no more crooked than any of the rest of them. It was just kind of a crooked time. And I want to have you back, Tom, to tell us about how the actual Mayor Shaw corruption story is not really all it seems. Because I understand you're a bit of an apologist.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far. It was, I think Shaw was probably blamed for a lot of things that he wasn't responsible for. I think I told Richard, no, I told somebody at City Hall when we were doing the new mayor's election. I had to describe a lot of the mayors that LA were and when we got to Shaw, I explained that my doctoral dissertation on it. I kind of compared him in one sense to Richard Nixon in that he was not a very good judge of character in appointing people. His brother was a lifer in the Navy, helped him with his election in 1933, and then became the kind of like the head of the corner pocket, as they would call it. He was his number one man. He was the one that was really the liaison to the other world. And
his papers are at UCLA.
Yeah, Joe Shaw's papers. Frank's papers. I met Frank's second wife when I was working at the museum, and she married. She was very young when he was very old. He was running a real estate office in the 50s in LA. And I asked her, did he leave any papers behind? Is there not the city archives or anything like that? She said, papers. I said, like that looked like official city papers that historians could use. Oh, I remember he used to take these pictures, they were regular 8.5 by 11, and he would slice them up in thirds and use them for scrap paper and things like that. I said, okay, thank you. But a lot of Joe's stuff is at the UCLA Special Collections. It's available for us. Steckel, that was mentioned, was kicked out by Shaw when he came in, and they brought in James Davis, who was probably worse as a LAPD chief. But nothing ever happened to Steckel. They kept him around. They demoted him, and they down to some, and he found him retired. I think he was probably chased out, and a lot of the LAPD officers were after Shaw was recalled from office.
Yeah, there was a clearinghouse in the Los Angeles Police Department after Shaw's recall. The badge was changed. There's a lot of
there were too many extra badges floating around.
Claire, yes.
This is a question for Mr. Sitton. You mentioned Bryson, the name Bryson, as part of the county government. Was he the one who built the Bryson building?
No.
On Ocean Boulevard? I mean, on 6th Street.
Not as far as I know. It was an earlier one. There was actually a Bryson building. It was on Spring Street.
The Bryson Law,
Bryson Law, right.
built by one of them.
Yeah, I think this was probably descended from that family because he was pretty wealthy. He was a big banker in Los Angeles.
And one of the mayor at the time was also an investment in Bryson Law.
Right.
We have to go. We have to stop. I want to thank everyone. My walk report starts in about 2 minutes. Thank you.
See if you'd like to get a copy of the book. We do have a few. And
Yeah.
thank you.
Kim, let's set up your breakout. Sure.